Okay, so we are starting back and we have another fabulous speaker for you, Marwa. So Marwa is the global head of operations at Tech for Teach for All, and they're working towards a world where all children can fulfill their potential. So Marwa will be exploring how a self-managing organization can work across many cultures with a real focus on diversity and inclusion. Over to you, Marwa.
Thank you, Maureen. Hi, everyone. I've been here since the morning, and it's been exciting to hear all of the different experiences. I've learned a lot already, and I'm excited to share our experience in Teach for All. Just to give a quick context on sort of what I'm going to be talking about in our organization a little bit, we have been really going through a deeper reflection over the last few years on our ways of working, how are we developing our culture, how are we creating impact, how are we going about creating the impact that we want to do within our network and organization. To give you sort of a sense of the scale of our network, we have 60 partners across the world. We are in every region. Our staff are in at least 25 locations around the world. Our staff have at least 30 plus nationalities around the world. So we have a lot of diversity into our organization. And we've been really occupied with this learning question of how do we ensure that we're setting ourselves up as an organization and subsequently as a network to navigate an ever-changing ecosystem in a way that's sustainable, in a way that is sustainable for us as an organization, but also sustainable for our people. And we've been at a really good place. I'm going to share my slides quickly. We've been at a really good place in the last couple of years. So in the midst of the pandemic, our engagement results in our organization was 85%. We've just published our new engagement results for this year in April, actually, and it's a whopping 88%, which I'm really, really proud of. But to give context to this, we are an organization that is 80% diverse. So 80% of our staff meet at least one measure of diversity that we measure. So we've been asking ourselves, what is contributing to this? How are we sustaining this experience and this type of impact within our organization? And we are learning a few things. I'm going to share 2 key ideas today, and hopefully you'll find some nickable ideas that you can take back to your organizations too. But before I start to really give light to these 2 ideas, I want to tell 2 stories. My first story is about a colleague that I'm going to call, for the sake of this, Zach. And this is a true story. Zach had joined our organization towards the end of last year, so early December. And Zach is based in Kenya, and I was with Zach in a similar to this, a breakout session, and we were reflecting on our on Teach for All's culture and ways of working and how it impacts our people. And here's what Zach said. Zach was like, I found my voice in Teach for All. He's like, all of my life, I'm that student or that professional that comes into a room, sits in the back of the room and just sits silently. I don't contribute, I don't share, I leave from the meetings exactly the way I came in. And he's like, I went to Teach for All and I realized that there's no back in the room. There's no back of the room in Teach for All. Like, first of all, we're virtual, so there's physically no back of the room, but it's always a circle and I'm always invited to speak. And at the beginning, I was very hesitant to speak up, but then I started sharing my ideas and I realized that the conversation became richer. I've learned a lot. The people that I was engaging with learned a lot. And over time, and now I can't wait, like he literally was saying, now I can't wait to go into all of these meetings because I feel I become a better person engaging in these conversations. Imagine being the head of people or operations and hearing this. I just want this to sit in with everyone for a minute. It's such a fantastic experience to have. My other story is a story of another colleague that I'm going to call Katrina. And Katrina's based in the UK, and Katrina reached out a few years back, and she was like, I really care about the environment. I think we're not doing enough as an organization, as a network, and we need to do more. And I asked Katrina then, I was like, what do you want to do about it? And she was like, I don't know, let's bring people together and just talk about it and take action. And she did. She went, asked who's interested, created a group that came from across the organization. Later, that group expanded and included people from the network. And they talked about what they care about what we could do. They proposed policies and practices and habits that we could do internally, externally, awareness that we could do. And it's fascinating. I've done so much work since then. Fast forward 2022, we had just hired as an organization in Feb our first head of global climate leadership and education in Teach for All, which is fascinating. Like, I think about how it started and how people came together and really exerted their leadership in a way that created that kind of impact. And of course, we're just still beginning that journey. This is just very early, but I think this story really speaks a lot to what I want to talk about today. So today I'm going to talk about these two key ideas. This idea of how do you build leadership across every level in your organization, and how do you ensure that everyone's voice is included as you're creating the impact that you want to create within the organization. These are our biggest learnings in how to, one of our key learnings on how to build resilient organization. I'm going to shed some light on the first idea first, and then move us after the breakout into the second one. So when you think of leadership, usually in traditional organization, it's mid-level and above. And we asked ourselves, what would it look like to have leadership at every level, to have people truly living into their leadership and truly having agency across the organization at every level? So we've experimented over the years with a few things. Our first experiment was very similar to what Al had said about getting out of the way. We realized that we look at our managers, we have expectations, superhero expectations of our managers. We realized that we're having very unrealistic expectations around our managers being the all in all for their staff members. So they manage performance, make sure priorities and the work is getting done. They also are coaches. They also take care of development. They also navigate conflict with you. They're just everything. And we realized that this is so unfair to set as an expectation of every manager in an organization that is as diverse as ours. And we asked ourselves the question, what happens if we free up managers from that responsibility of managing people, and that we would just let them manage the work, focus on building amazing cultures within their teams, and let people manage themselves, let people manage their time, their performance, their life and journey and development in Teach for All. And fast forward, we've been experimenting with this now for a few years. And just to give you a sense of what that looks like in terms of shifting our staff members' experience, in this last survey, the engagement survey, 94% of our staff have said that they think their managers or team leads are fully living into our core values. 90% thought that their manager helps them make decisions and grow and develop. 93% thought that their managers welcomes their voice, includes them, and supports their voice in the organization. This is outstanding, and it's like a true shift in our staff members' experience. So what then? What happens to our staff members? We have people from different cultures, it's not like we left them in a lurch. What happens when our staff are owning their own journey within the organization? We decided to not look at support from the organization similar to parents. Like, you don't choose your manager and you won't choose the person that is going to coach you. We said, what if we allowed our staff to make choices, to choose who they want to walk with them on the journey of development and navigating the organization and being? What happens? And I think that's my nickable idea, by the way. It's the sponsorship program. We experimented with the sponsorship program a few years, and it's life-changing, to say the least, in our organization. This idea where we ask people to volunteer to sponsor other people. And what we mean by sponsor is that this is someone who's your biggest cheerleader. This is who you go to advocate for you, to help you, coach you, to guide you, to vent to. I go to my sponsor to vent and talk about challenges in my week. This is your person. And we asked people to volunteer, and then we asked people to choose. And it was fascinating what we saw. What we saw is that we tapped into this amazing informal network of leadership within our organization. We now, after a few years of doing this, we have sponsors at every level, every region, every function. Like, it's just across cultures, levels, functions. It's just fascinating. And we realized that this is such an amazing way of choosing who you want to walk with you in the journey. So that's my second idea. First idea, managers, not superheroes. Second idea is the sponsorship program. And then my third idea is this third learning, really, is bringing decisions closer to the work. And I think a lot of my colleagues, the speakers before me, have talked about this idea of getting out of the way, this idea of like truly bringing decision closer. And I have the Katrina story is such an amazing story that highlights that. No one up there is making the decision. The person is making the decision because they're passionate about it and they're leveraging the collective wisdom. And what that creates is that you build judgment. We always worry about staff members or teams making the decision because we worry they don't have good judgment. It's a muscle. You practice that muscle and you equip yourself with the collective wisdom of those around you, and you make excellent decisions. And that's what our experience has been over the years. Finally, my last idea, my last learning is we had our staff own their journey in Teach for All, and as part of that, their development. And what that meant is that they leveraged their coaches, their sponsors, the support systems that we have, but they own where they want to go. We said, as an organization, our philosophy is that we want our staff to live into their highest contribution. But what that means is that they decide where they want to grow and develop. And that enables a level of flexibility that traditional manager development doesn't create. I'll pause here and leave you with a quick question for the breakout. Listening to these ideas, what would leadership at all levels look for you in your organization? So I want to talk about my second idea. So we talked about resilience, what would contribute to organization resilience or us navigating, and these two learnings that we've had, building leadership at every level. And our second learning being sort of bringing everyone's voice into the organization or into the work. And that's actually one of the most difficult things to do, if I'm being super honest. So we had to think a lot about how do we build an inclusive organization? And actually what we think about a lot is how do we build a diverse, equitable, and inclusive organization? And I will share 3 ideas or 3 things that we've been doing in Teach for All that helps us do this. The first thing, if you want people's voice at the table, you want to invite people at the table. So being super intentional in who are we bringing into our organization. We are very big about people who have lived experience in our organization, people who are coming from, we call them the global majority, who come from non-Western descent. We just basically want our organization to reflect our network, the areas, the nations and communities that we're working and trying to serve. And where we are now, I'm always really proud to talk about this. Like, we're 80% diverse as an organization. 80% of our staff meet at least one measure of diversity, and that takes intentional effort. I'm going to talk specifically about at least just recruitment. When it comes to diversifying your staff, it's looking like we have a rule that we don't share, the recruiter doesn't share the pipeline with hiring manager unless the pipeline is 60% diverse. That we set up our candidates. We talk to our candidates. Our recruiter spends a lot of time with our candidates, especially those that are going to go be going through the interviewing process around who we are, what do we value, what's the role, what are we going to be asking, everything. We talk to them a lot about our organization. We share resources and videos, so they're very well set up. They also partner with hiring managers, not only in training them around unconscious bias, but also to coach them about and surface the tension. Basically, we surface when unconscious bias is at play, when someone is saying, oh, but I don't understand how they're speaking, like their pronunciation is not right, or their writing English isn't right, is surfacing all of these things. And many other things, like posting roles in local channels. One of the things that we're thinking about, our new head of global talent acquisition is thinking about, is posting roles in the native language of the people that we're seeking within the organization. So how intentional are you in who are you bringing into the organization, and who's missing, whose voice is missing? We've done an exercise last year, actually last couple of years, where we looked at what are the locations where our staff come from, and which locations are missing and why. And we started expanding that. So that's my first idea. The second idea, which I think is a very popular idea, is when we think of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusiveness, they immediately think of development. And a lot of people think of development as training, and that's a big misconception. I think if you truly want to build an inclusive organization, these three things come hand in hand. Self-awareness, skill building, which is trainings, and then coaching and open dialogue. I think how we asked ourselves the question, how would we identify where do we want to grow and develop if we don't know where we are? So we really encourage our staff to go onto these learning journeys to learn about their values, limiting beliefs, biases, ways of working, preferences, privilege, the power that they hold. And with that level of awareness, they then go to build their skills and engage in coaching and so on. We also learned that knowing something is very different than being and doing something. And that's where coaching comes in, and open dialogue. Like, how do you, using your sponsor, your coach, and these different support mechanisms, to talk about how do we do it in the day-to-day. I'm facing this situation with a staff member or a colleague. We have different communication channel approaches, or how do I truly manage across lines of difference, and so on. And having open dialogue, we talk a lot about privilege and power and decentering white dominant ways of working in our organization, and openly, because that helps us decenter some of the practices that we want to decenter in our organization. So first idea, diversify, invite people into your table. My second idea is development, being a holistic approach to development. And my third idea, and actually, as a result of our approach, at least 70% of our staff are engaging in learning opportunities. And those are the ones that we actually count. Like, these are only the structures. There's teams do development, communities do development within our organization. We have just all types of, I'm involved in a book club where a group of us have come together in a very organic way to learn about attachment theory and belonging. So my third idea is systems, processes, and procedures. So we talked about bringing everyone, building the capacity of everyone, the knowledge of everyone, but that's not enough. It comes hand in hand with how are you building your systems and processes and procedures, and using those to be the landing where you take off, where that enables us to grow and develop, and not create systems that are static and create a ceiling for our development and our potential. And to create that, we are very keen on our systems being staff-centered, and that enables us to be flexible and continuously evolving. So one of the examples that I like to give, in the past 6 years, we've shifted our compensation system at least three times. And what that happens is our staff gives us feedback. We basically listen to that feedback, reflect on it, and learn from it, and then respond to it. And what that creates is enables us to evolve collectively. And we do that across our systems and policies and procedures. It enables us basically to evolve as our staff body evolves and grows. So I'm going to pause here and send you out for another question before we come back. what would you personally do to support your organization become more inclusive? So Henry, Cleo was asking me a question, so I'm just going to go ahead and answer her.
Go for it.
She was asking, in the sponsorship program, do people choose their sponsors or sponsors choose their people? So our staff members choose their sponsors. And her second question was, well, what if one person, like people choose the same person? Everyone chooses the same person.
Yep.
And we actually had that fear when we first launched the program. We had a hypothesis that everyone is going to choose senior people in the organization or more experienced people. But what we've learned is actually with a diverse organization such as ours, people chose all sorts of people. It didn't end up in our experience that people chose only one people. Of course, we have some more popular people. But over time, as you're doing this, people actually, we encourage people to think about changing their sponsor every year, and some don't, some do. So even that evolves over time. So I might think this is the person I want to be with, and then I might change my mind over time. So that has been our experience.
And do some people not get chosen, and does that matter?
Yeah, some people don't get chosen and doesn't matter at all. They continue being on the list. They engage still in all the development that we do to sponsors, and they get chosen. And then again, sometimes others don't. It's a very dynamic process. So there's no judgment associated with it.
Okay. How often do you have to reopen your pipeline to reach that 60% threshold?
That's actually to all our roles. Like, we just don't share with our hiring managers who are the candidates in the pipeline, except when they reach 60%. So, and we're very intentional about how we cultivate that pipeline in a way that over time, now it doesn't take a lot of time to cultivate a diverse pipeline, because we're all of the different channels where we want to hire.
So how does the pipeline work? Does it, are people just continually applying to be in it, or? So
we publish our roles in different channels, and then we look at all of the candidates and we shortlist a set of candidates. So let's say 10 candidates that we think these are the strong ones that we want to take them through the interviewing process. Before we show these 10 to the hiring manager, we make sure that at least 6 of them meet at least one measure of diversity that we care about in Teach for All. Okay,
right. Top question is, where people are more introverted, how do you enable them to speak up? That was the Zach's story.
We actually spend a lot of time talking about bridging. So it's not even introverted. It's like some cultures are more hierarchical than others. Some cultures are more harmonizing than other. Even when we talk about raising the tension, how do we support our staff raise the tension in ways that adapts to their preferences? So we basically instill different channels for communication. So I'll take performance management, for example, to share for people seek feedback. They are responsible to ask for feedback, but they are free to ask for feedback in whichever way that they feel comfortable with. So I could choose a form. I could choose that people share on WhatsApp with me or share with my sponsor, and then my sponsor tells me. There's just like a myriad of options that people could choose that sort of meets their own preferences and expectation and bridges to their working style.
Oh, okay. And do you have sponsors in the senior team? Yes,
we do have sponsors in the senior team.
For them.
Yes, I have a sponsor. A sponsor, and everyone, like, I think, as I said, I think it's 60 or 70% of our staff have sponsors. So it's everyone across levels have sponsors. Like, it's something that is very successful right now in our organization.
And so, and the senior team, are they fellow members of the senior team, or could there be people elsewhere in the organization?
It could be anyone. It really could be anyone.
Wow. Okay. Let's see. Next question. What support or training do you give to the sponsors?
So we have this, we have multiple mechanisms. So we have, first of all, what we call sponsor onboarding. So we talk about how we help them, we talk about the role, what is the role of the sponsor? We talk about confidentiality. We talk about the coaching, like how do you coach your staff? We talk about the resources that sponsors have. So that's the onboarding. We also have what we call sponsor circles, where we have circles of sponsors that come together to share their experiences, get help from each other, support each other with what's happening, look at trends. We also have a Slack channel, which gathers all of our sponsor communities for questions, like I'm facing a situation and I need a quick answer on something or quick support on something. That is where people go. So we have multiple things. And on top of it, of course, our people team is always available to support sponsors with these things.
Okay. Now, somebody's asked, we talked about white privilege narrative becoming a fear and an obstacle if you are one. Any ideas how to overcome silo thinking in a risk-free way?
Say that again, Henry, sorry.
It's quite, who can I ask who phrased this so that they can say, unmute and say, we talked about the white privilege narrative becoming a fear. Who said that?
That was me. I've tried to articulate, but probably not so great in words, but maybe better if I speak it. Yeah, we were talking about how we could be someone who's a white privileged person, or we could be somebody in another bracket that, you know, you have a particular story. But then there's a fear with that's, oh, I don't want to say the wrong thing, or I don't want to do the wrong thing, and I want to do the right thing, and not be biased. How do you overcome that thinking in a positive way so that it actually doesn't become an obstacle? It's actually an enabler.
Such a great question. Thank you for asking. I think the first thing is how we're approaching it. We're approaching this, our DEI journey in general, we're approaching it as a journey versus an action or a transaction. So it's a journey that we're all going on. The development that we do really equips a lot of our people on having awareness about like how to use language in a way that is respectful of different cultures and so on. But we also have other mechanisms. So we have coaching, for example, we have DEI coaching, where if someone is struggling or worried about having a meaningful conversation and doesn't want to offend, you could get a coach to help you with that. Internal coach. We have partnership with another benefit organization that does coaching for NGOs, so that we use them a lot. And there's the sponsor that could help you with such conversations. So there's just multiple mechanisms on how do we make sure that we're tapping into the leadership and agency of everyone. Decentering white dominant ways of working means that we're centering all of the ways of working. It doesn't mean that we're excluding one approach versus the other.
Tell us a little bit more about that white dominated ways of being, because you've identified, I think you've identified 4 specific things, haven't you?
We identified 4 that we're on a journey to work around in our organization. So perfectionism, fake sense of urgency, the paternalism, and the sense of urgency, perfectionism, paternalism. I think the worship of the written word is one of them. So it's like these 4 elements of how centered our ways of working are dominantly around some of these things. This idea that things need to be 90% or 99 before they go out there. The idea of paternalism, that we need to protect people from X. This idea of fake sense of urgency, that everything needs to happen now, for example, and that kind of thing. And we've been engaging in dialogue with each other. This is the thing that I shared at the being open dialogue about how do we center some of these practices.
Excellent. That is fascinating. That is fascinating. Okay, let me just see. I think we're coming to a close. Yeah. Okay, Marwa, that's been brilliant. Everyone unmute and applaud.
Thank you, everyone.
That was absolutely fabulous. Some great ideas there, some great stories. Loved it.